We started about finding some fantastic beasts, then saw Grindelwald commit some crimes, so now it's time to expose the secrets of Dumbledore. In an effort to thwart Grindelwald's plans of raising pureblood wizards to rule over all non-magical beings, Albus Dumbledore enlists the help of his former student, Newt Scamander, who agrees to help despite not being aware of all the dangers that lie ahead. But before I properly start with my review for Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore, I want you to start the conversation about it in the comments below if you're excited, if you've seen it. If you want to check out my review of the original Fantastic Beasts, it's up there, it's right now on the channel, and I'll be back soon with my review for Crimes of Grindelwald that I couldn't put up before this review because I got to see it early. So thanks to Warner Brothers for having me over at the early screening, and if you like movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. And the biggest person I have to praise in this review is Steve Kloves. He basically saves a sinking ship from absolutely drowning. After the Crimes of Grindelwald didn't do this franchise any favors, and with all the issues we have in and out of the films, this film in itself is a miracle. I thought the film was solid. It has a ton of issues which we'll get to, but Steve Kloves does a masterful job at kind of recuperating and working with the mistakes done in previous films in kind of steering this franchise back in the right direction. And the right direction for this franchise has always felt like there was, and now with this one, it shows that it is, to focus on the love story between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Focus on Jude Law and now Mads Mikkelsen playing these roles, which has always been the central conflict, the central driving force of all of these events. And whenever this film focuses on that, it is at its strongest, it is at its most compelling. Jude Law brings an incredible depth to who Dumbledore is. In this film, we start to slowly peel the layers back, and while the whole world, including characters in this film, revere him as this grand wizard, he's the best of all of us, we start to see the flawed man behind it. The man that has made mistakes along this way and is haunted by those mistakes. A man who feels just as much as those who revere him and almost make him kind of this deity. Mads Mikkelsen, he honestly should have just been Grindelwald from the start. He is intimidating, but at the same time charismatic. He has this dynamic presence on screen. You just feel this magnetism towards him. Even though you know this guy is evil, there's just something about him that is indescribable. You just see him on screen and you believe this man. He is cunning, he is smart, and he has this very strong conviction that makes him an extremely compelling villain. More than that, the dynamic between the two is unmatched. Whenever Mads Mikkelsen and Jude Law are on screen, sparks are flying. At its core, this is a tragic love story. This is a story of loss, of regret, of sorrow. The film dives deep into the fractured, complicated relationship that these two have, what put each of them in their own path, what brought them together and ultimately tore them apart. The film has this very good notion of exploring relationship, whether it is between these two former lovers or even between Newt and his brother, the love story that ended in the last film with Jacob and Queenie. When it comes to relationships and characters, I think this film does a marvelous job, and it really understands who these characters are, what makes them likable, and the charm and quirkiness that comes with these characters. The film has a great sense of humor that was sorely missed from the last one. Whether that comes through Jacob's involvement in the story, and Dan Fogler is once again really funny on screen, whether that comes from Newt's relationship with the beasts, how he tames them, how he works around certain situations because of his knowledge of beasts, and the film finds these incredibly charming, entertaining ways to bring us along in this adventure. One of the biggest issues I've had with this franchise, even though I really like that first movie, is that it never felt like the Newt part of the story with the beasts that should just be basically Pokemon in the wizarding world that never really mixes well with the wizarding world story of Grindelwald and the government and Dumbledore and the intimate story at the core of that. This film finally blends those two together very well, creating one cohesive narrative, one grand adventure with grand stakes, but also personal, intimate ones. It has this large scope that affects the entire world, the entire wizarding government, but it feels personal because of the conflict at the heart of it, again, between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. The beasts are finally front and center themselves, playing an integral part of how things play out in the story, which also inserts Newt himself more organically in the story, despite still not sharing a great relationship all that much with the villain and the central conflict itself. And the film is very slow-paced at first. You can definitely sense it picking up as it goes along, but one of the mixed things in here is that because the film is trying to correct certain mistakes of the past, it feels like we're starting from zero again and picking back up to have some payoff for the conflicts that have already been started between these characters. That being said, that leads into some great action sequences throughout, where the film feels like they're assembling almost this kind of Magnificent Seven style team to combat Grindelwald. Now they're not 7, they're 5, those are details, but even the shootouts or the wand outs in this film feel like they're straight out of Western films. They basically treat the wands in this film and the spells like guns and bullets per se, and it's really awesome. There are certain duels that we have between Dumbledore and other characters, and you just see how awesome and badass and powerful Dumbledore really is. Those action sequences are awesome on camera. They feel more badass than they ever felt in any of these films. They carry this incredible momentum. You understand the stakes, you care for the characters, and the score by James Newton Howard might just be his best within this franchise. All that said, there are some mixed things in here and some outright bad things in here. This film is fighting an uphill battle from the go. It's trying to overcorrect certain things to steer this thing sort of in the right direction, hopefully, and for the most part it does, but it just can't overcome certain things, where it's kind of writing and rewriting logic that has been established in the other films, and it's taking them in other directions, which is fine. Those are directions that this franchise should go, but you can't help but notice how it contradicts certain things of the world building that have been established in previous films. There are certain characters in here that feel like they're just hanging in there until the moment where they actually matter for the story. There are characters in here that feel like they have their arcs microwaved, where they present what the conflict is, what the characters have to overcome, and then there's no sense of progression and evolution. They just come to a point where they make a decision and everything turns around, and they end up in a different place than when they started. And with that microwaving of certain arcs, certain plot beats, and certain character beats, just again stirring them in certain directions, you can tell they're playing it safe. They don't know if they're gonna make another film, so they kind of put this in a position where if it ends here, there's enough of a finality, there's enough of a conclusion. So the film feels very much like it's playing it safe. It's putting itself in this vague enough position where it doesn't finalize everything, but it also doesn't not do it. And so it's strange in that way. It doesn't feel wholly satisfying. Another mixed thing about the film is that it keeps you out of the loop for the longest time. You're going with these characters along in the journey, and as Dumbledore has always been a secretive bastard where he doesn't tell you anything he doesn't want you to know. So for a lot of time you're thinking, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we going in this direction? Why do we have to get that thing instead of doing it that way? And so for the longest time you're questioning a lot of the decisions of the characters in the story. There comes a point where it finally clicks, and when you look back it adds up, but watching it for a first time, a lot of times you're distracted almost from following the story because you're questioning the decisions the characters are making and the directions the story is taking, where it seems like it should have been much easier to do things a certain other way. And Newt, for as much as I love him and I love Eddie Redmayne in the role, he still feels like he shouldn't be the protagonist. He's the character we focus the most time on. He's the character we follow along the most. He's our lead in this. He's our perspective character. But he's never at the heart of the conflict. He's barely a notion in the villain's mind, so he's never central in where the story is at. Where the story is most powerful, Newt is almost adjacent to that. So I still feel this series has a problem in having a really likable character in Newt. He's a good protagonist, not for this story. He's not the right protagonist for this story that we're following. But The Secrets of Dumbledore finally delivers the tragic love story between Dumbledore and Grindelwald that we've been waiting for. The film is at its strongest when it's focusing on that, when these two are on screen and their conflict is being addressed and explored. It's a Western-style wizarding adventure that finally brings back some magic into this franchise. It's a new hope for it. I'm giving Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore a B-. But those are only my thoughts on The Secrets of Dumbledore. I want to know what you thought of it, if you're excited, if you've seen it, anything and everything down there. Check out my review of the first one if you haven't yet, and I'll be back very soon with my review for The Crimes of Grindelwald. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to Warner Brothers UK for having me over at their early screening, and thank you to my channel members Bruna and Stuart for making this video possible. Don't forget that if you like what you saw here, you can click that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV, and I'll be back very soon. So until the next one, love each other and love the movies.